Few names in the automotive world carry the weight and prestige of the Aston Martin Vanquish, a model name as iconic and important as the brand itself. Today, the legend is reborn in an all-new 820 brake horsepower Super GT. But will it live up to the legend?
There's a completely different structure kind of from the bulkhead forwards. Related, obviously, you've got different masses moving around. You've got a V12 up there, you've got longer wheelbase. So there's a different structure in there. So it's kind of evolved in that 12 sits in the middle, Vantage is shorter, and then there's...
But what's great is it's clearly a very different car. Like you visually see it straight away, and you're like, that is not a DB12.
Yeah, we wanted, and this is kind of Vanquish, why not just a new DBS? Vanquish, when it first turned up in 01, was its own car, had its own platform, drivetrain. It's one of the best car names, I think, in the market. So it had to be a special car, and I think then when we set out to refresh all of the sports cars, and obviously we first talked about DB12 early last year, we've since done Vantage. The crowning moment of that kind of renewal was to do Vanquish, but we set out from the start that we'd always have this flagship. It would always be a Vanquish. So we set out to build a Vanquish, and Vanquish, then from there you go, right, well, it needs its own platform. It needs its own wheelbase and stance. Obviously, massive investment in the new V12, which comes at an interesting time in automotive development.
I was going to say, that couldn't have been an easy route to go down.
No,
right?
That's been a surprise to a lot of people, and obviously we announced the V12 investment before the car, so we did the press release for the V12 earlier in the year.
But as a USP, phenomenal. Because now it really sits in its own space.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think what we also said is V12 is for Vanquish, so it won't go down the range. So whereas before we had V12s in the junior cars in the range, this stays in the flagship.
So come on the topic of displacement, what capacity and output are we talking on this V12?
So it's a 5.2 litre twin turbo V12. So we had 5.2 in the old V12. The displacement is basically the only bit that's carried over. So it is a new engine, new block.
Oh wow, so it's an entirely new engine, new block too.
New heads.
Oh wow.
New turbos, new exhaust, new everything really. Repositioned all the spark plugs and so on. So we've completely rethought the engine. A lot of that is around two things. One is obviously massive growth in the power and capability of the V8. V12 had to be even better. The other bit was obviously emission compliance. So we're now, we had to build a car that was going to go at least until the end of the decade, compliant with all the emission regulations globally.
Has that been a challenge?
Massive,
Has it?
Most of the investment now with and the regulations, obviously, clean at tailpipe, but also the onboard diagnostics is the big monitoring of the engine during its life cycle. So you've got monitors throughout the combustion cycle on the car that must be in place during ownership as well to make sure the car is always performing as it was when it was new.
So it shouldn't be taken for granted that there's a V12 in this. It's a big deal.
No, exactly. And the other decision we took was we didn't want to hybridize it, and that really was about maintaining as much as we could the weight balance of the car, the purity of the drive, and everything else. At this point, we could get the power target done with combustion. So that was where we wanted to stop.
We'll get onto that in a minute, because that's the exciting part.
And not add further complexity.
All right. Wow. So this is entirely new.
Yes. So
crikey. Massive undertaking that.
Yeah, and I think once you start looking at the required specs and the emissions, you then go on a journey and say, actually, what we need to do is rethink the whole thing. But we had, a displacement that worked and could package, so that starting principle of 5.2 litres was okay, but everything else brand new.
So in addition, horsepower, I'm dying to hear the power here.
So,
tell me.
835 PS.
830, what's that, like 820-ish horsepower?
Yep, and 1,000 Newton meters.
1,000 Newton meters of torque.
So big numbers, class-leading numbers.
They are indeed. That is serious.
And so
flipping heck.
Yeah. So from the start,
820 horsepower and 1,000 Newton meters of torque.
Yeah. So and then the other aspect was making the engine versus our previous V12s much faster revving, so it has more of a racy feel in line with the kind of performance pillar that we've already established with DB12 and with Vantage. So already delivering something that can do the big grand touring stuff because it's just got that wave of torque.
Yeah.
But it also rewards driving off the limiter a lot. revving it. It loses RPM a lot more quickly than the old engine. So it just feels like a racier machine to work with.
So are the gear ratios, are they specific to it?
Yes. So the whole drive line has been completely rebuilt for this car. We've got the the ZF gearbox with the 8-speed, but it's been completely overhauled. So it's a new version of the ZF 8-speed. It's much faster shifting.
So it's a snappier shift.
Much snappier. I think you probably sampled that in DB12 a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as near as we can get it to that kind of dual clutch on certainly on the upshift.
Well, and you've crispened it, as it were.
Yes.
Improved it even further.
Yeah, particularly in the more sportier modes. Obviously, it's got different drive modes, but as you go up through those, you get a really, really slick shift, very fast, very responsive as well on the downshift, which is really important.
That's always the part where you can differentiate. The upshifts you've nailed. Right? I mean, particularly on DB12. I've noticed on more conventional sort of torque converter autos, it's from high speeds under heavy braking going down through the box.
It can be reluctant.
Has that been worked on?
That's been a huge area of development and focus because of exactly that. Plus, with the big V12, you want to use the engine braking in real world driving.
Yes.
To feel in control, to just harness the power as you go into cornering and so on.
So I'm assuming you're running your fancy DTX Bilsteins.
Yes.
That you developed from 12 and then onto Vantage.
Yeah.
This is no doubt going to help, certainly at the rear, with putting that power down. Right?
Yeah, massive. So the DTX technology was chosen for the new gen of sports cars, always with Vanquish in mind, with the longer wheelbase, the greater levels of torque. And
so you sort of reversed engineered that from day one to be part of this.
Yeah, and it's a hugely capable platform anyway. You know, so it was 5 times the power of the old software we're using in the previous gen sports cars. So the range we could get from its most comfort-oriented setting up to Sport Plus is just massive. So that system really, I think, is the biggest transformation when it comes to how much better this car is at putting the power down than perhaps the previous DBS. You know, it's got tons of mechanical grip, particularly at the rear, in cornering. So you don't just have these high-level numbers; you can actually feel it,
use it,
and put it down on the road in a broader range of conditions.
Fantastic. Engine placement too. It's quite far back.
Yeah, and
it's almost front mid.
Yes, and we call it a front mid-engine GT. This is the other advantage, of course, of the wheelbase, is that we've worked hard to push the mass back. So the centre of gravity for the engine is behind the front axle. In addition, what it allows us to do is put close to 80% of the overall vehicle weight between the axles. So you've only got small amounts of mass outside of the axles of the car, so you get a very nice...
So when it's rotating, it's more around you rather than...
you get a really nice handling balance, and it belies its kind of wheelbase when you're driving the car. So again, a lot of effort in doing that, but obviously we've got a transaxle layout as well, so the gearbox is over the rear axle.
Lots of carbon here, this entire bonnet.
Yeah, so
beautiful. The
body of the car, like DBS, is carbon fibre. So with a carbon fibre construction, that takes a bit of mass out where you don't want it.
So wheelbase, is it 80 millimetres?
Yes.
Longer than a DB12?
That's right, yeah.
Substantial.
So, yeah, it is, and I think where you see it, because obviously the wheelbase is extended ahead of the A pillar, and you know, this is that kind of dash to axle dimension that you hear designers talk about, but it gives the car real presence as it arrives. So you see this kind of nose coming out, and then it, as a result, tells the story of the V12.
Right. When I saw it first time, it reminded me of something closer to a 177 than it is a successor to a DBS.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
And 177 really exemplified this long nose, short rear kind of design dynamic. Obviously, that was a very different car, but it was also a V12. And I think in elevating V12 in this kind of, as we talk about this sort of final era of sort of peak combustion, V12 is now, it was difficult to develop. Therefore, we should all be, you know, cherish this period where we can still buy brand new V12s and newly developed V12.
So electronic architecture then, this is all new traction control.
Yes.
How are you dealing with that amount of torque? Is there some sort of blending techniques?
So the first thing is something we learnt from DBS Ultimate, which was the high power sort of final edition of the old DBS, was applying torque shaping, you know, through each of the gears. So we don't layer on all the torque in the same way in each gear.
So you don't get 1,000 Newton meters in first.
No, because you don't need
like 12 reps. Yeah. Okay.
And once you light the wheels up in any car, you have to really back out to get traction again.
Sure.
So it's a very sophisticated system that allows you to accelerate with a kind of increasing sense of acceleration as you go out through the gears.
Right.
Obviously, you get a wall of torque in this thing from very low RPM, so below 2,000 RPM, you're at maximum torque. So you've got this wall hitting you.
Below 2,000 RPM?
And you go right up to the red line.
Wow.
And it's still delivering. Previously with the V12, you'd almost drive it in the mid RPM and just stay there. This really rewards you revving out and you get that sound. And I think that's what, when you talk about the V12 customer what they're coming in for. The sound is obviously a core part of that.
Yeah, it's a big part. Okay, so talking about sound coming off a V12, what's its peak RPM?
So peak RPM 7,500, so slightly higher than where we were before.
Higher than previously. What hurdles have you had to overcome to make the V12 sound like a V12?
In the modern era, lots. Obviously, you've got GPFs and everything. You'll see we've basically got an all new exhaust system, so huge quad pipe system.
There's a serious set of tailpipes.
Serious tailpipes, serious sound as well. So we've got two exhaust systems. The standard system is a titanium.
Okay.
Both are tuned differently. The titanium one's focus is slightly in the higher order, higher RPM. It's more resonance. So I think enthusiastic driver would go for that.
Sure.
But both systems have that kind of baritone V12 quality.
Yeah.
And we've tried to did most of the benchmarking as much as we could with the previous gen NA engines to try and get some of that, particularly the low RPM bark. So you've got that kind of, in a lot of conditions in the real world, you start the car, you drive at low RPM, right? Before you, and it's in those moments that you think, wow, this is why I have a V12.
That's quite a benchmark, because that car, the previous gen NA V12s were unbelievable.
Yeah, and obviously, to some extent, it's always hard to achieve all of that through the order, but there's been a huge focus, and hence the investment in an all-new exhaust system to try and develop that as well. So that's a really cool part, but it's, as I say, it's part of the DNA of a V12 is the sound.
Of course. I'm assuming it comes on carbons as standard?
Yes, CCBs, and unique to this car. So newly developed braking system, new brakes, new hardware, new booster, and then new software to manage it all as part of the integrated vehicle controller. And that's part of the same kind of suite of technologies that we put on all the new generation sports cars.
So we cannot talk about a new Aston without discussing the way it looks, right?
Yes.
This is up there with some of your punchiest.
Yeah.
Starting with that whack-off grille.
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
It's huge. So, all new design, obviously, across the entirety of the car. Yeah. Grille is, as usual, is a huge part of the functionality of the car. We've got this new V12, lots of cooling required. So we've got cooling packs right across the front of the car, tucked in behind the grille, right to the outboard edges as well. So
while it's big, you do need it.
100%, yeah. It's been measured through all the thermal analysis exactly as big as we need it to drive the cooling and the intake into this new V12.
Is that your largest grille?
Yes.
I mean, it looks bigger than DBX.
It is bigger.
It is bigger.
Yeah, it's bigger.
Okay. Wow, that might be some context actually, because in the room with that 80mm larger wheelbase, I mean, it's got some incredible presence, but until you see one, you might not appreciate it.
Yeah.
But if you contextualize this grille as being larger than a DBX grille, that might give you an idea.
Yeah.
But it's pretty serious.
Yeah. And then we sort of shroud this with this very dramatic shark nose. So the most forward point of the car is up here, and that inside profile gives us a very dramatic view of the car, very different look to Aston, and it presents then obviously the new badge which we introduced last year with the next generation of sports cars, so with DB12. But here the new badge then starts that run of styling up across the hood of the car.
It's very cool how these crease lines come right off the wingtips.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So very, very much proud, pushing forward, and giving it a kind of dynamic feel even when it's stationary.
This is a really nerdy little thing, but I love that you cared enough to have your what will eventually be like lane hold assist and radar stuff centrally symmetrically mounted in the grille.
Symmetrically mounted, and then of course when you fit license plates, you know all of that, it doesn't actually catch your eye at all.
What is it with brands putting them like there? Like,
it's awkward off centre. It's also awkward if you try and blend it into the badge, because it's you see them and they're very obvious. They are big bits of kit. They has a lot of technology, but
at least it's symmetrical.
You can blend them out the way the better. And of course, our grille is it's real metal. We always use authentic materials, and that's a kind of
isn't it? Okay.
These cooling vanes up the hood of the car are there for heat evap, and also we're drawing a lot of air through the car. So to move that air through the body and over the car, we have these big cutouts, which is why you see this particular aperture out here.
Some serious sculptron across thing, isn't that?
Yeah, if you remember, the DBS Ultimate had the big sort of horseshoe as well, which was performing a similar function as well.
And then you've carried over your new wing mirror, which is like a sort of ball joint.
Exactly, yeah. So frameless wing mirrors, which have been incredibly kind of well received on the rest of the sports cars, give it a very different look.
It's just so clean, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really nicely styled thing. Obviously, you've come through that sort of extra wheelbase, that 80 mil there between the dash and the axle. So you've got this dramatic kind of sort of premium length through the front of the car. And then as you come up the side, you get into this enormous kind of rear haunch. And this really is what the design team sort of, this is classic Aston, if you like. This is very much, 111 years of evolution.
Serious
this sort of
hips.
S through here.
Right.
Talking about the power of this rear-driven car with 835 PS. So it tells the story, and this is a beautifully sort of moulded piece of carbon fibre bodywork that obviously picks up at the base of the A-pillar and sweeps all the way around. Very, very clean,
stunning, isn't it?
Piece of bodywork. Yeah. So this is dramatic.
As well. I mean, the depth of this. I'm not sure if the camera's really picking up how much depth there is on this car, but look at the depth. I mean, there's my hand for comparison. It's got so much depth to it.
Yeah, right throughout. So it's a very dramatic body side as you start to drink in some of the details. And obviously the side strake, this is another classic kind of Aston feature, but you've got the air evaporation behind the wheel arch there to help with aerodynamics, keeping the air close to the side of the car. And of course, we've referenced the V12, of course, on the side strake.
So from sort of front to rear three-quarters was dramatic but familiar Aston Martin. The rear looks an entirely new aesthetic. Yeah,
so very much a new design language at the rear. We've got obviously the star of it is this shield feature that comes across the rear, hides the shut lines for the rear trunk, so you get this very clean aspect if you're following the car. Light blade technology that we first developed on Valkyrie that we're now sort of bringing into the core of the range. So it's a really dramatic rear, and then it frees up a lot of space, a lot of sort of real estate here for a much bigger diffuser and obviously huge quad pipe exhaust. So it's got a very menacing rear on the car as you're following it. It looks very, very exotic. It's a new language for us. It's something we'll take forward, but obviously debuting here on the Vanquish.
That's clever on the shut lines. I hadn't picked up on that until you just pointed it out, but it's really cleaned it up.
Yeah, it's very neat, very clean, and your eyes are just drawn to that. And then obviously through all the personalisation choices, you can take this shielding body colour, or you can black gloss or carbon and so on. So we've already seen some of the early sort of specifications, people really playing with that and giving the car a different look.
So production numbers, what are we expecting on these?
V12 for us now is a very exclusive part of our lineup right at the top. So we're capping production at no more than 1,000 units a year. So that's a lot more constrained than DBS was. It's going to be a customer demand car only. We fully expect to be kind of sold out and then sort of working through that order bank as each production year is released for ordering. It's a different approach, but it's something that's cool in this sort of tightened market and rarefied atmosphere of V12 that we think customers value that exclusivity as well as all the attributes the product has.
So as part of the 80 mil longer over a DB12, I'm assuming you've put in some structural improvements, some torsional gains there?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why this structure isn't just longer than the rest of the sports cars, it's unique. So from the bulkhead forward, it's a completely different design. In fact, what we've done to assist with the handling, to let the dampers do their thing, and also with rear sort of traction at high speed in particular, is stiffen the car dramatically, kind of in the front to rear dimension. It's about 80% stiffer than DBS in that dimension, so front to rear. So you've got a very stiff platform ahead of the front bulkhead, and that makes it an even more dynamic platform than we've ever delivered on V12 products.
So another pretty flagship figure that I heard was it's 214 miles an hour.
Yeah,
right.
Yep. So
Swift.
Yep. Absolutely. So the highest top speed of any production Aston Martin, and again, one of the targets set for the program was that to have the highest ever VMAX for us. Hence why with the new V12, we had to deliver the highest specific power output of any V12 we built, so 160 PS per litre.
Crikey. So it's a full re-journey on this engine.
Absolutely.
So, big one. What's the starting price?
So starting price around 330,000, which was sort of the leave-off point for the previous gen DBS. So actually we haven't gone ahead of that. And what we've delivered is a kind of fully specified car at that point. So carbon brakes, the Bowers & Wilkins audio is included in the car. It's already a carbon body car. So actually, in terms of the user-defined journey, we do expect a lot of clients will go down the route of bespoke Q specifications and so on, but actually, you know, you're into personalization and color and trim and so on.
Right.
But the specification of the car is incredibly strong at, you know, out
Sure.
of the gate.
So at that price, you're getting a pretty full fat spec that you can just tailor to your taste, really.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do. Is I think a flagship is a flagship. We wanted to say you get it all.
Yes.
Included. In the
Okay.
car. Yeah.
And the wheels, will they be optional?
Yep. So there's 3 style of all forged lightweight wheels.
Okay.
20, 21-inch front and rear. But yeah,
Brilliant.
a range of finishes. Not all black and dark. I
Sure.
know the trend is moving. So you know there are lots of different finishes.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I think you can give the car a very different personality, and that's really where the Q team and the bespoke team come in to the commissioning process.
I'm assuming the infotainment and everything is the latest version off the back of, let's say, DB12 Vantage, now DBX.
Yeah, and it's been really well received. We've had, obviously, experienced now lots of DB12s in the field. I think, obviously, the switch to a touchscreen. Where it's been particularly successful is people have welcomed the retention of switches.
Right.
And we've talked, we believe that almost the industry had reached peak screen, and we've had enough. So dynamic controls, audio, HVAC and so on, all to hand through mechanical switches. Redesigned from the other car, so it gets a unique cockpit. This is much lower, so it's got a sort of more cocooned feel.
That's very cool that it isn't a totally shared interior. It's familiar, but it is unique, isn't it?
Yes, so all of this centre section's new. The screen angle in this treatment here is new. The binnacle is different from the other cars.
Yeah.
And for the first time we've got the standard glass roof fitted, so it just gives the cabin a different ambience.
Will there be the option of a carbon sports seat?
Yes, so full carbon sports seat or this, which is a 16-way heated and cooled seat.
So if you want to go full Grand Tourer, that's all hooked up, but if you want to, you can go a bit more focused.
Yeah, you can definitely, and you can trim this, you know, if you talk about all the leather in here is Alcantara, full carbon inlays and so on, you can really make this interior look very, very sort of racy.
When can I drive it?
Very soon.
Very soon?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
It's going to be fantastic. I think you'll love it. And I think, you know, we should cherish V12.
100%.
And I think when you drive it, it will be, our brand is synonymous with V12, and we think this is the best we've ever built.
Well, I think the fact that you've launched an entirely new homologated V12 non-hybrid is something that should be applauded. So, well done, Aston Martin and team. Very, very cool.